Everyone. Welcome to our Learn Excel in an Hour series. I'm hoping that I can add some value today to your Excel skills with conditions. Since we are going to be in a webinar format, unfortunately, I shall be the only one speaking. Otherwise, I would love to hear you all also. But today I'll be the only one speaking and looking forward to whatever you have to say in comments. Please put in chat. I prefer chat since chat allows me to do not use Q&A because I don't check that too often. Chat, I can look at whatever you've posted and whenever I can, however I can, I'll try and respond as well. So let's begin. Give me just one moment to do a little bit of cleanup before I begin. Are you all able to view my screen? Let me open chat. I forgot to do that. Great. All right. So here we go. We're going to cover a certain number of things today. We're going to look at what the conditions are when we are creating formulae. When we speak of conditions, the thing that comes first to mind is if, because that's the most basic condition. If, then, else. The if, then, else is as old as the hills. People have always been asking, what if? What about this? What about that? And that's what if, then, else does. It prepares us for what happens when you're doing an if. So today we will look at if by itself. We will look at the nested ifs, then the function ifs, ifs. We will look at switch, and we will see how switch can be made a bit more interesting. We will also look at how you can build a series of formulae and ultimately combine the formulae into one single mega formula. We're going to do all of these things in parallel. Some of these things will happen in parallel, not all, of course. But here goes. All of you, as I understand it, are from different backgrounds, and therefore you have different business perspectives. I'm just going to take a certain number of categories, and let's see how we can make this more interesting for you. Let me create a data sheet. I will create a reference sheet. And in this reference sheet, I'm going to create some text. Okay. So my text here for category 1, I will use some names. Let me pull these names down and make a list. All right. So I have a category. I'm not giving this a name yet. So what Amitabh, Chiranjeevi, Kamal, etc. are, we do not know yet, but it doesn't matter. For category 2, I'm going to take the concept of quarter. Okay, so I'm going to say quarter 1, and let's just copy this down. Okay, let's say that this person only has a quarter 2 and not a quarter 1. Now I have category 3, which is as such. Let's make this. Give me a moment. Let's move this around. Category 2, I will give it some text, maybe 3 options. So in reference, I'm going to put 3 options. I'm going to say text 1. And the next is a no-brainer. I'm going to have text 3, 4. Let's go with text 4. Okay. Just to ensure that we have exactly the right kind, let me quickly give this a name. This is my category. Which one was it? 2 or 3? 2. Category 2. Okay. So let's call this name. Name. I'm going to convert this to a table. I'm formatting it as a table. My table has headers. Yes, it is called name. I will just give this category. Oh, too long to. Let's make it cat2. Nothing to be confused here. Cat2 is fine. What have I done? It doesn't like it. Cat2. Okay, I'm going to make it, oops, cat underscore 2. Right, so I have cat underscore 2 and a name. Why I'm using text 1234, you'll see later. So for now, I'm going to ensure that the data that I have here is one of these. Okay, so I am very rapidly bringing in a data validation. I'm going to say this is a list and my source is indirect, open brackets, open double quotes. Let's call it, what was that? Cat, oops, cat underscore 2. And the table name was name. Close double quotes, close brackets. Right. So now I have here a bunch of values and I can decide what each one should be. So let me just simplify it for myself. I'm a big believer in automation and in optimization. Of course, my family always calls me just lazy. So we'll go with that. Right. So now we have three, one more. Shall I make this four? Right. So we are done. We have text, we have some values. Let me put some values here just to ensure that we have something useful. I will put 3000 to 8000. How's that? Oops, too fast. Comma, 8000. I'm creating some random values. I will double click on this and convert this to values. Okay, so I'm making this set. Now, my objective here in category 3 is to say that based on what I see here, if I have a target, one single target, my target could be, let's put this here, for this quarter 1, 2, 3, let's add 3. Okay, so we have 3 quarters. So for each of these, I have a target value. Let me create a list. Like I said, I like the efficiency that Excel brings. So I have a list of all those unique values, which means that if I go back here and add for this person 4, that's perfectly all right. This is what happens here. I get this list. Okay. So I have this list here, and against this, I'm going to put some targets. Shall we say 5,800? Maybe 6,200. 7,000 and 4,500. How's that? So I have some numbers, right? I have some numbers and I could call this quarter, which is my only fixed category really. Let me go back and just call this quarter. And I have target. These are my target values. I have just this to look at. Table has headers. Yes, indeed. And it won't allow it. I forget this. I can't do this because of this problem. When I use unique, I'm not allowed to. So since I know I'm not going to change this, since I've already shown you what this is, let me actually make it. Right. So I have set it. Let me make this a table now. This is just a quick setup for you to understand what it is that we are looking at and how we're going to change this around. Okay, so I have a quarter, I have a target. Now, what is it that we typically do? If I wish to understand whether the target has been met or not, target met. Okay, so it's a yes or no. How do I do this? One of the simplest ways is for me to say, hey, I can just do an X lookup. X lookup, what do? I take this value, I look it up against this list, and I return this. Okay, this is my X lookup, simple X lookup. It tells me 5,800. Now I want to grow this sentence. So I say if my measure, shall I make this also a table? How's that? Let's do this. I don't actually need to select the entire thing. I can leave anything one clicked and that will take care of it. Okay, so I will now say if C quarter, right? Move to our if measure is greater than equal to the target, then has the target been met? Yes. Else, no. So just two have met the target. Um, Poor fellows. All right. So two have met the target. Maybe I should push the target down a little bit. Does that make sense? Shall we say 4,800, 6,000? Maybe some more will meet the target. 5,800. Let's see. A few more. Okay, good. So this we can work with. This is where I have set an extremely basic if, but I have combined the if with a lookup. All right, this is a very simple if that I have combined with a lookup, where I'm saying that if this measure is greater than the value that I have pulled out of the target table, then I can say that the target has been met, else no. Are you all with me so far? Yes. What I have done is I have created a bunch of data. And in this data, I have created based on target using the measure, a lookup, and then I have applied an if to it. Let's look at just if, okay? Uh, Nested, just ifs, nothing but if, nested along. I do not use, hello, I need a capital. Yes, I do not use the table at all. I'm not interested in this table. I'm just interested in the values. 4,800, 6,000, 4,500, 5,800. This is what I have. Let me make a small little copy of this for reference, ready reference as I type out my formula. Here goes, paste. Right. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using the X lookup, I'm going to say if, what is my logical test? My, I'm so sorry, you won't be able to speak. I won't be able to unmute you. So if you are raising your hand to ask a question, please ask the question in chat. I can look at it as and when and respond to you. So I have here a way of using nested ifs without lookups. If quarter is equal to QTR1, then 4,800. Else, if again, I will copy this along. Copy this whole thing, paste it in, and I say this is quarter two. Then it should be 6,000. Else if, so one more if. Let's copy this and say QTR 3. And then it becomes 4,500. Now, do I need to worry about the QTR4 as well? In a nested if, there is always a default value. Since there's a default value, I do not need to put one more set of conditions, a logical test for QTR4. So if it is QTR1, then this. If it is QTR2, then this. If it is QTR, then 4,500. Else, I no longer have an else if 5,800. I have to remember, let's see what happens if I just do enter. It tells me that I'm missing an opening or closing parentheses. That's because I need to remember how many parentheses to close, how many brackets to close. So I close 1, 2, and 3. So now all the brackets are closed, and this gives me the values. And with this in place, I reuse my if measure is greater than equal to. I reuse this here. I paste it there. So if measure 1 is greater than equal to blah, 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 then yes, else no. So does this match? Oh, I seem to have written no in French. Let's make that English again. Right. So we have just a quick eyeballing, and we can see that we are getting the same answers. So this is with a nested if. What happens if I use the if formula? I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but with an ifs formula. So I'm going to start with just the ifs like we did for the nested if. This is slightly different. How is it different? We start with the logical test. I forgot that I had to copy that again. Let me just go back. Okay, let's copy this. So the way an ifs formula works is I have ifs. My first logical test. My first logical test. So you see here, logical test, value if true. I put another logical test, QTR2, and value if true. One more logical test, 4,500. Don't worry, don't start yawning yet. We are nearly there. QTR4, and this gives us 5,800. Oops, I have one single bracket to close. Now, the trick in ifs is that every single logical test has to be called out. There are no defaults. So what's the difference between ifs and if and if? If in itself, when nested, has a maximum of 7. And when you go to 7, you're done. More than that, if has if has a basic issue, you need to remember exactly how many brackets to close. You have to remember the formula in this manner. Mhm. If then, okay. So everything is if then. We are constantly moving to if then, if then, if then. However, we also have the else if, and final one, this would disappear. It would be like not having it at all. Now, I have a question here, which is quite interesting. In your example, we have only 4 quarters. What if I have 12 or more than values to check from? It'll be too much to type. Is there a way to select that from table? I think Rohit, you joined just that little bit later. We started with that actually. So let me show you. Uh, just give me a moment. I'm going to close this bit here. Same thing. I come in here, I add this and say if it is yes, no, I forgot the double quotes. Okay, so we actually started with a scenario where you may not need to enter so many individual values. And that is this. We are using an X lookup. We are starting with an X lookup and then applying the if, yes, no. Simple. So I'm doing an X lookup from this table, and this table can be as many as we need. It doesn't need to be limited in any manner. Because of my anal nature, I'm going to turn off these silly grid lines. Right. So I have an if then. I have done a simple if with an X lookup. I have done nested ifs and I have done ifs. I will now show you how this works with a switch. So a switch works. So I will show you the different ways in which switch can be used. Switch is very much like ifs with a difference, with a small difference. Okay, why don't I just copy this entire thing? Okay, copy, go there and paste a lot, except that instead of ifs, I'm going to make this switch. All right. And the switch here, if you look at it, I will remove this last logical test. Eee! Something went wrong. What did it not like? Give me a moment. So switch, I have my expression. QTR1. Oh, this is where the problem lies. I need to change this. I need to say, this is my value, QTR1, then 4,800. I can remove this. I don't need it. I say QTR2, 6,000. QTR3, 4,500. And this will give me the answer. Shall we study that a bit more in detail? What I'm doing is I'm starting with the same value. My expression, however, since it is equal to, I'm just picking up QTR1, that is quarter. And I'm checking if what is the quarter one value. If it is this value, what should be the result? If it is this value, what should be the result? And so on, so forth. With the default. You remember we spoke of ifs not having any default. Switch does have a default. And that's the advantage that we are using here. All four of them are giving you the same output. If we ignore this first, where we are using an X lookup, and we focus on the nested ifs, and switch, which one would you go for? Which for you makes more sense? Remember, nested has a limit of 7. Well, obviously, XLOOKUP can be the simplest, but in the absence of XLOOKUP, if you were to choose between nested ifs and switch, remember that nested ifs has a limitation. Ifs and switch may be better, but if you think about it, depending on who your users are, you should think whether you will consciously use ifs or switch. Switch is great for people who are Excel comfortable folks. For people who are not very comfortable, then what happens is that we are actually looking at an easier to read formula. Quarter is equal to QTR1, 4,800. It's equal to QTR2, 6,000. It gets a little bit of, it needs a little bit of getting used to come to a point where you're able to say, in switch, effectively, everything that I'm looking at is reading this as if the value is QTR1, it should be 4,800. You see the difference there? I'm not saying that switch is not good. I use switch all the time. But, well, let's face it. It depends on who is going to use the file. If I'm going to give this to someone who is not very Excel savvy, I may go for ifs. Now, I have a question here. Do we have limitation in switch? Yes, we do. Switch can handle a total of 126. If you are ever in a situation where you have to enter 126 tests, logical tests, please go straight for XLOOKUP. Create a table, fill the values there, and use that, which was our first approach. All clear? So this is where we are. We have tried. What's the difference between ifs and switch? If you have to call out the same test each time. Quarter is equal to QTR1. So this is how. See, logical test 1, what is the value if true? Logical test 2, what is the value if true? Logical test 3, blah, blah, blah. And finally, what is the default? But in switch, we just do this first expression, whatever is our expression. If the value that matches that expression is this, what is the result? If it is this, what is the result? This is the difference. And switch has a default, unlike if. Okay, I have a question. How about if we have QTR1 and QTR4 have same target values? How will the Excel differentiate here? Well, in this case, you will not need to create. No, let me give you two answers to that. One answer is if you are looking at being certain that these values are not going to change, QTR1 and QTR4 will always be the same. You can remove in ifs or whichever one, you can remove this. Well, not in ifs, in switch, because switch has a default. So you could set the default, or you can just continue repeating the number. So there are different ways of approaching that problem. Now, can we use VLOOKUP also instead of XLOOKUP? Oh, absolutely. You can always use any of the lookups. I have I should add here that VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP are the first lookup that were implemented by Microsoft. And these are broken in their own ways. They need us to follow our certain rules in our data. Without that, they fail. Sometimes they give you an incorrect answer very quietly. It's not very different from ChatGPT today. It has all the confidence when it gives you an answer, and then you have to go figure it out and check whether it is actually true or not. VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP have had these small failings. The only way you could get an accurate lookup earlier was to use a combination of index and match in those days. XLOOKUP is not only more performant than all three, but as accurate as index match. So while I don't say that you can't use VLOOKUP, feel free to use VLOOKUP as well. But XLOOKUP is a lot more efficient. Then why would you bother about anything else? Unless, of course, you're using an older version of Excel which does not support XLOOKUP. In which case, it's perfectly all right. Go right ahead with VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, as the case may be, whatever you need. So we have here the same answer, which we've arrived at using 4 different approaches. In each of these approaches, what we did was to start out with a simple first level calculation, then wrap another calculation around that. And so you think of your sentence here as, so let's draw, this is 1, and then I create another one around this. Oops, send back. And another one around this. I could create a set of these and chain them. Okay, this may all sound like gobbledygook to you, but let me explain this to you. You see this inner box? This inner box is our X lookup. How do we know that? Our if has a logical test. Inside this logical text is another function. So this entire piece is not a fixed number or a cell, but an entire function by itself. So we have the X lookup inside and we have the if outside. And you can have in this manner a combination of multiple such things, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. You can have any number of combinations inside also. Levels of formulae. All of those are referred to as mega formulae. Now, I'm going to give you a complication here. You see this? Let's go back here. You see this? This is quarter target by, what did I do? This is 1. What did I call this? Did I give it some name? I didn't. Okay, let's call it now. This is table 3. And which one is this? 3, 1, 3, 6. Ooh, okay. I will call this table 4. Table 4 already exists? Oh, that's why. Okay, I will give it a proper name in a bit. You see, we created this category 2, which has text 1, 2, 3, 4. and we have quarters which are there. At the moment, we have assumed that for everybody, whatever the category, the target is the same. But what if we had different categories? Let me rename this. I will call this text1 underscore. I will call this one text2 underscore. How about we create 2 more copies? Mhm. Parallax error. Okay, so this table design is going to be called text3 underscore. This is text4 underscore. So for each text, I have a different set of targets. Let me do this here. Is equal to rand between 4,500 and 6,000. Okay, right. Okay, so I've got this. I will do something similar here in each of these. Right. So as you can see, everybody here has a different set of targets. Shall I give these fellows same targets? That's okay. Right. So I have created now 4 different sets of target. How do I handle this? Any thoughts? I can't look up one list. I have to look up 4 different lists. So if I were to represent the same thing differently, it would be text if and if. Okay. And here I have, which was that list? I have this list here, right? Let me copy this down. Then okay, so I'm doing a transpose, switching it there. Oh. So my then would be, I don't need that. I can still do if, remove this, and I would have more values here. That's how it would be. So how do I do this kind of a check? So this is my complex scenario. Just so there's no confusion, this is not a function name. It's just a complex scenario. So I'm going to try this. If the measure value is greater than, okay, yes. If the measure value here is greater than, okay, you was referring to VLOOKUP. Let's do a VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP Okay. Now I'm going to do a switch. For switch, I'm going to say text 2. And then I will say, give me so if it is text 1, then give me text 1 table. If it is text 2, then give me the text 2 table. If it is text 3, now that's the last one. So I don't need a, that's a default value. Switch, I close the bracket for switch, then I close the brackets. So after this, I say second column. I want an exact match. False, comma, yes, else, no. Okay. Have I closed all the brackets? And now this is going to look at all of the data. Let's check what is happening. 4597 text to quarter one. 4597 text to quarter one. Has it been met? It says no. So let me make this true. It still says, oh no, sorry, it's 4597. So yeah, it is definitely not yet matching. So I can make it back to false. Right, my mistake. 4597 does not fit. It's less than 4800. This one is 4833. Text to quarter one. We know that's 4800. So yes, it changes. What about 3475? No. 36969? No. 7140. Text 3 quarter 1. So let's look at text 3. This is the text 3 quarter 1. It's 5706 and this is 7140. Okay, how about I change this to 7200? What happens here? It has become a no. I have another text 3 quarter 1, which is no. How about I change this to quarter 3, text 3 quarter 3? And text 3 quarter 3, this one, I will say 3500. So ideally that should become yes, right? So it has become yes. So what we are doing here is we are simplifying the way we look up. This is not the only way to do it. There are many other combinations that you could try. I'm showing you one in which we are using a VLOOKUP. We are saying if measure is greater than, and we are doing a VLOOKUP of the value. However, how do we pick up the value? From which table do we pick up the value? That combination of the table where we are matching the quarter, right? We are matching the quarter against in each of these tables. But which table should it be? That is being decided by a switch. And the switch is checking category 2 and allowing us to pick up the right table. And from that, it's taking the second column, giving us an exact match, and then allowing us to see whether this is a yes or a no. So if I have to explain this in words, can I request you all to try and explain this in words, simple sentences? The best thing about Excel is that it's all about logic. If you can get the logic, then you can figure it out. Let me copy this out, paste it here. Minus the is equal to sign. Okay. Let's get rid of our boxes. We don't need them anymore. Sayonara. Okay. So what am I doing? Check the value in measure one. See if it is greater than the value in the corresponding column in the table that matches category 2. Is this something that you can relate to? Try it out. I'm writing one sentence. You can all try your own options. Tell me what works. You can type it out in chat. Is this making sense to you all? I have to do a two-step process. My first step is to pull the value and check if it is greater than its corresponding value. But how do I get that corresponding value? The corresponding value can only be got from the right table. So how do I determine the table? That's where I use a switch. So see if it is greater than value in the corresponding column. So this is where I look up, and this is where I use a condition, which is my switch. Greater than. So I will just say that this is a simple match. So to repeat here, what I'm doing is I'm taking a value, I'm seeing if how it matches with another value. What is that other value? It is from one of these four columns. Which table should I pick? I use a condition. So I do a lookup after identifying the condition. Let's go back to the formula. If we say measure one is greater than, how do we do a VLOOKUP here? We do a VLOOKUP. We take the entire I will talk to you again of XLOOKUP versus VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. So what do we do with VLOOKUP? We select whatever we want to match, in this case, the quarter, against the entire table which has that set, which is our table here, which is what switch is giving us. And then we say which column do we want to take the value from. In our case, we want to take it from the second volume column. And that column, we want an exact match or an approximate match, true or false. That is your VLOOKUP. Would you like to try this with XLOOKUP? Okay, so let's try this with XLOOKUP. Uh, That, oops, what did I do? Twice, yes. And let's wrap this text. And here I'm going to make a copy. Obviously, I don't want V, but X. Okay. All right. So I have my XLOOKUP in place. I'm going to do the same thing. Remember what it is that we are trying to do. If, what was that? Is equal to if, ah, something is off with my typing today. Measure 1 is greater than, and this is where I need to do a lookup. Let's look up. What is my lookup value? My lookup value is the quarter. What is my lookup array? So my lookup array I need to determine. How do I determine the lookup array? So this will give me a switch. So what is my switch? Do I use one switch or two switches? How do I do this? Because I need now two columns. I will end up having switch category 2, comma. I'm going to copy this slot. Stay there. Coming back to you. You see, this is where things will change a little. I can't take the entire column, the entire table. I have to take the right column, right? So if I say text 1, which one? I need quarter because that's what I'm matching. Text 2, quarter. Text 3, quarter. Else text 4, quarter. This is my switch. So I have a lookup value, which is quarter, which I'm matching up against this. And then I have a return array. The only way I can arrive at the return array now is to have another switch. Except that in the second switch, it will be not quarter, target. This is my return array. So This may actually be faster. E, go away. Target. And I have a target here as well. What error will it give me now? Parentheses. Yes, indeed. Give me a moment. Right, I've closed X lookup. I haven't closed the if. And it's not happy with something. Let me check. Did I miss something? Let's see my X lookup. X lookup has lookup value. Yes. Lookup array. Yes. And return array. My return array seems to be right. Target, 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 target. I have my switch is in place. Is my switch in place? Let's check my switch formula. My expression, value 1, result 1, value 2, result 2. And that's fine. That's my default. Text3 target, text4 target. What does it tell me? Why does it tell me? If logical test. Ah, that's where the problem is. I'm missing a comma somewhere. Is greater than X lookup. I forgot to close this. No, I didn't. Oh, of course. I haven't actually put comma. Yes, else. No. Right. So do we need a parenthesis for text 4? The parenthesis here is to close the switch. And the second parenthesis is to close the X lookup. Then I have the yes or no. And finally, so when I look at the if, I can see here, this is my logical test. This is my value if true. This is my value if false. So this is where we've created a relatively complex formula, but we've done it bit by bit. So this allows us to maintain the entire logic. Whether I use VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP, it gives me the same answer. It follows the same logic. So this is how you use condition to create, depending on what your actual scenario is. These are the simpler scenarios where you had only quarter to consider. Both these last two complex ones are where we had category 2 and quarter to consider. Now, you remember we left category 1 and 2 blank. Text 1 could be department 1 and all the way down. And this would then be accordingly departments. So that's all we have for today. I just need you to see that this data, this approach will apply to absolutely anything, whether it is HR, sales, accounts. It doesn't matter what your use case. The approach itself is common. Thank you all for your time. And yes, I do believe the recording will be shared with you. You may not have access to the files, but the recording should help you. I have created the file in front of you so that you can recreate it and test it out by yourselves. Thank you all. And well, hope to see you next time.